In this world, every 500 years, a woman is born with the spiritual energy to transform a snake into a dragon. The creature that possesses this power can determine humanity's fate by either destroying or saving the world. Present day in Los Angeles, the police are examining the sudden appearance of a giant trail, seemingly caused by a large creature. Ethan Kendrick is a reporter who has come to the scene to investigate what is happening. Agents refuse to answer his questions and tell him to leave. Before leaving, Ethan notices something strange that looks like an animal scale buried in the ground. Ethan has seen this before when he was a child, and he begins having flashbacks as he stares at a strange medallion that he always wears. 15 years ago, Ethan went to a local antique store, accompanying his father, who had gone to sell a blade to the store owner named Jack. Ethan looks through the items and sees a mysterious box unlock itself after sensing his presence. The box opens and reveals a giant scale that emanates an aura toward young Ethan. Jack sees this and begins having a heart attack, but when the father tries to call an ambulance, Jack tells him to buy medicine from the next shop instead. Ethan's father tells him to look after Jack and runs off to get the medicine, but it turns out that Jack faked the heart attack in order to speak to Ethan alone. He tells Ethan that there are giant serpents called Imoogis that live in the heavens, and every 500 years, one of the serpents is awarded for its good deeds and turned into a celestial dragon. For this to occur, the creature needs a magical object called the Yu-Yi-Ju, but a corrupt Imoogi called Buraki and its followers have tried for a long time to steal the Yu-Yi-Ju. 500 years ago, Heaven decided to hide the Yu-Yi-Ju by sending it to a city in Korea and guarded by its best warriors, Haram and his master Bochun. But the evil serpent also knew the location of this magical item. The local lord's wife gave birth to a girl named Narin, who was destined to be the holder of the Yu-Yi-Ju with a dragon birthmark on her shoulder. When Narin became 20 years old, the Yu-Yi-Ju would form inside her, and the evil serpent would appear once again. Narin soon becomes a beautiful woman, and she begins falling in love with Haram. The master shows Haram the good Imoogi, who's destined to become a celestial dragon, and Haram is fascinated, watching the Imoogi swim. Bochun also gives him the medallion that only the protector of Yu-Yi-Ju wears, which can also protect him from harm. One day, the evil serpent brings all its followers to the village to search for Narin. The army fires bombs, killing people and causing massive damage. The humans are easily defeated because they have no magic. They capture all the women and look through every one of them, trying to find the girl with the dragon birthmark on her shoulder. The army soon arrives at the Lord's house and kills Narin's father in front of her, causing the girl to run out and mourn for her dying dad. One soldier rips open her clothing and sees the dragon birthmark. She is forcefully taken away from her home. Fortunately, the master flies in and fights the army with his magic, giving Haram the opportunity to save Narin. The two go into hiding, and the man tells Narin the truth about her destiny. Bochun manages to escape the fight after being wounded, but finds the medallion on the ground with his student missing. Haram tries to run away with Narin instead of bringing her to the good Imoogi. The evil serpent Buraki chases them closely behind. Buraki corners them on a cliff, and the two are forced to jump into the ocean. They both die. Jack gives Ethan the Protector's medallion and tells him that he is Bochun's reincarnation, and that Ethan is Haram's reincarnation. He tells him that this is their second chance to fulfill the prophecy, and that Ethan must find a girl named Sarah, who also has the dragon tattoo, and bring her to the Grand Cave. After remembering the girl's name, Ethan goes to his friend Bruce and tells him to find Sarah, as she's likely to be connected with the giant trails that appeared. Bruce tells Ethan that they need more details, as there are probably thousands of women in the city with the same name. Meanwhile, Sarah sees the news on TV about the gigantic trails and suddenly becomes worried about her safety. She runs home without even saying goodbye to her friend. She's subconsciously aware of her impending danger and tries to protect herself by looking through a book about ancient prophecies. Her friend Brandy comes back home and is shocked to see that Sarah has put up numerous paper talismans in the house to ward off evil. Brandy tries to comfort Sarah and tells her that she's only imagining the danger, but Sarah chooses to trust her gut. Sarah is right, because a giant serpent appears in the city looking for the Yu-Yi-Ju. Sarah begins having nightmares at night. She feels an intense pain coming from her birthmark and calls the ambulance to take her to the hospital. Brandy tries to look for her friend after finding out that Sarah was hospitalized, but the nurse refuses to let her visit, as only family can visit. Brandy goes to Sarah's house to pack some clothes for her, but suddenly feels the ground shaking from the outside. She runs out of the house and sees the giant serpent. She screams in fear, but Baraki bites her and tosses her into the pool, leaving her to die. The next day, Ethan receives the report that a woman was killed inside a house by what the neighbors claim to be a giant snake. He immediately heads there, fearing that Sarah may have died already. When he arrives at the scene, he realizes that the girl is not Sarah. He learns from the neighbor that Sarah was taken to hospital before the attack. Ethan rushes to the hospital, but is stopped by the front desk, who tells him that Sarah was put into quarantine for a wound on her shoulder that may cause infections. Ethan tries to look for another way in and meets a doctor who's a big fan of his news segments. The doctor helps him to find Sarah. Ethan tells Sarah that he believes she is in danger. He tells her that they have to leave immediately because the monster is close by. Suddenly, they feel the whole building shake as the giant serpent has tracked them to the hospital. The doctor rushes in and tells them to leave right away as they are in great danger. Ethan takes Sarah to the exit as the doctor slowly transforms into Jack, who was watching over them from the very beginning. They run to the car driven by Bruce, and they speed off after seeing the monster appear in the garage. They escape from the hospital as the snake chases after them. Before they can catch their breath, Bruce hits someone with the car and stops immediately, but it turns out that the man is a servant of Baraki and plans to take Sarah back to his master. The group tries fighting with the general, but their attacks are useless because of his armor. Luckily, another car hits the general, and the woman driving helps them escape. The woman drops them off after confirming that they are not hurt, and she begins transforming back into Jack. Turns out that Jack is still helping them. Sarah is confused about what's going on and asks about the visions she keeps getting. To help Sarah find out the truth about her past, Ethan suggests that they go to a psychology professor of his who specializes in extracting repressed memories. He promises to keep her safe as they share a kiss on the beach. Ethan realizes that Sarah's destiny is to die if it turns out that she really is the holder of the Yu-Yi-Ju. Meanwhile, the continuous attacks in the city have caught the government's attention, and they begin to suspect that Sarah is somehow responsible for the monster's appearance. The agents realize that they may have to kill Sarah if they are not able to contain the situation, since the creature seems to be looking for her. At the same time, Baraki's general begins summoning more of the snake's followers into the world, using numerous ancient scrolls. They are determined to take Sarah by any means necessary. The government manages to track down Baraki's location and sends an army of special forces to terminate the beast. They head inside the cave, and Baraki appears in front. The soldiers quickly retreat in fear. They begin shooting at Baraki, but their efforts are pointless. Baraki's army arrives on the other side and forces the soldiers into a corner. The general, using his magic, destroys the soldiers in a single attack. Meanwhile, Ethan's hypnotherapist is trying to extract the suppressed memories from Sarah's mind, and eventually, Sarah begins seeing her childhood, and she also sees her past life as Narin. Her spiritual power begins awakening as her memories return, and she is surrounded by a glowing light. Sarah regains consciousness, but unfortunately, her powers have also alerted Baraki to their location. Now they have to run away. They drive away as the giant snake destroys the house and chases after them, destroying everything in its path. Luckily, they manage to lose the monster in the residential areas, and Ethan calls Bruce to arrange a helicopter since they are no longer safe on the ground. They meet up with Bruce in a restaurant, and he gives them supplies and tells them that the helicopter is on top of the news building. Unfortunately, Baraki has located them again and is destroying everything to get to them. They run away. Now, the police have come to kill Baraki by firing at the giant creature. This distracts Baraki, allowing Sarah and Ethan to escape. They continue running towards the news building as the monster chases after them, destroying everything in its path. People panic and run in fear while Baraki continues to wreak havoc. Sarah and Ethan run inside the news building and eventually make it to the rooftop, where the helicopter is waiting for them. Baraki has noticed where they are and begins climbing to the roof as well. The helicopter tries to take off, but Baraki launches and grabs on top of the aircraft, forcing the two to jump out before the helicopter crashes onto the ground. Dark clouds begin covering the sky as Baraki roars. He stares at the two and plans to devour them to acquire all the power. Luckily, they are saved when the US military arrives and begins shooting at Baraki with missiles and bullets. Ethan and Sarah escape again. Baraki fights back and destroys multiple choppers, but the army's combined firepower manages to knock Baraki down. They continue to shoot relentlessly as the creature screams in pain. Unfortunately, an army of Baraki's dragons is approaching the city. They attack the choppers by shooting out fireballs, causing huge explosions that force the military to retreat. Baraki's ground troops also arrive and begin launching bombs at the police, causing explosions. The military responds by mobilizing armored vehicles towards the creatures. The two armies march closer toward each other and begin a massive battle as the monsters charge towards the US military. The tanks fire at Baraki's army, killing the creatures, but Baraki's army also retaliates by shooting numerous bombs at the US military. Meanwhile, Ethan manages to escape the building with Sarah, but they run into the government agents who claim to be here to help them. The agents bring them to an underground facility, and the senior officer reveals that he knows about the ancient legends. He plans on killing Sarah to end this madness, even if it means that the creatures would come back 500 years later. Before he fires the gun, the other agent shoots him, after realizing that in order to save humanity permanently, Sarah must live. He gives them the car keys and tells Ethan to protect Sarah until they can change the fate of the world. They drive towards the border and plan to escape into Mexico, but Sarah claims that this is pointless because Baraki will track her down wherever she goes. Before they can finish their conversation, the dragons attack their car with fireballs, causing them to flip over and crash onto the road. Ethan loses consciousness as the monsters begin surrounding them. When he wakes up, he realizes that he's tied to a pole in the desert, surrounded by Baraki's army. They bring Sarah to the altar and tie her up on the table, ready to sacrifice her. The army chants Baraki's name as they open the massive door, releasing the snake to devour Sarah. Baraki moves closer to Sarah, while Sarah screams in fear. Ethan cries out for Sarah, awakening the medallion on his chest. This summons the thunders from the heavens, which concentrates the energy into a large shockwave that stuns the entire army and turns them into dust. Baraki recovers from the explosion and attacks them with anger, knocking Ethan away from Sarah. Before it can devour Sarah, another Imoogi charges towards it and knocks it to the ground. It carries Baraki by its jaws and throws the monster away from the humans. The two giant monsters roar at each other, and Baraki launches towards the other Imoogi, biting its neck and throwing the giant serpent onto the floor. Sarah realizes that she must fulfill her destiny, as it's the only way this whole scenario can end. She walks towards the serpents and summons the Yuhi-Ju from her body into the sky. Baraki tries to grab the glowing orb, but Sarah sends it the other way, and the good Imoogi swallows the energy. Baraki sees this and begins attacking, but the good Imoogi transforms and sheds skin, finally turning into a celestial dragon. It screams furiously and grabs Baraki, slamming the serpent onto the ground. Baraki recovers and begins attacking the dragon, but is no match for it as it gets thrown to the ground once again. The dragon flies towards the sky and Baraki tries to grab onto its tail, causing both of them to launch into the air. The good Imoogi turns around and strikes Baraki by its neck, tossing it downwards as it crashes into the ground. The dragon then shoots a massive fireball that lands inside Baraki's mouth, causing the serpent to burn from the inside and eventually turn into dust. The dragon flies back to Ethan and spits out the Yuhi-Ju, which causes Sarah's body to evaporate into a glowing aura that fuses with the magical orb. The celestial dragon roars towards the heavens and grabs onto the Yuhi-Ju. It then flies away and slowly vanishes into the clouds. The dragon is seen shedding tears of sorrow, sympathizing with Ethan for losing Sarah. Jack appears behind Ethan and tells him that he did the right thing, before also vanishing. Ethan says goodbye to his master and walks away into the desert. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.